Hello there. I'm Caltrops. And I'm red now. Life has a fresh intensity, spurred on by homosexual romance and Nissan super meals. Speaking of which, in this time of transition, I shall be talking to you from the ether. Tonight, I'd like to catch everyone up on the hottest commodities. That's right. I'm going to tell you all about the commodities most suitable for your fetishism. Which is to say, I am going to, through images, illustrate representations of commodities which your tiny mammal brain will be unable to distinguish from reality. Unfortunately, the joy which emanates from the commodity will not last long after its purchase. As Guy Debord wrote in Society of the Spectacle, the object that was prestigious in the spectacle becomes mundane as soon as it is taken home by its consumer, at the same time as by all its other consumers. Too late it reveals its essential poverty, a poverty that inevitably reflects the poverty of its production. So, dust off those pedestals. Here are 5 commodities imbued with enough spectacular gravity to consume you back. Number 5. Labor power. The raw material of all other commodities. This society would cease to function without it. Paradoxically, both a luxury out of reach for the majority of Earth's inhabitants, and yet the commodity most overproduced in respect to need. Indeed, use value is not really important under capital. The time labor spends producing a commodity is what creates value. Labor power gets dumped into bullshit jobs, much in the same way, say oranges for example, are ritually incinerated to inflate their scarcity. Though labor power as a non-consumer good hardly has the opportunity to reveal its essential poverty. The boss who buys the labor power will be satisfied so long as they get most of the value produced, and can afford to give back some fraction of the revenue as a wage. A wage which you will use to recreate your capacity to produce more labor power. Number 4. Simulated authenticity. To go to an artisan's Slumeria today and pick up a prosciutto, cured in the traditional fashion, a tradition stemming from a place and time long since lost to modernity. When you pay for the simulation of tradition, you pay for the extra labor time it takes to generate the product. Value under capitalism is severed from the qualitative aspects of the commodity. Whether or not traditional this or that tastes better, is sturdier, is healthier, or whatever, does not matter. On top of this, simulation implies an absence, and distorts the original in its pretenses of being faithful. Number 3. Time. Naturally, when you sell your labor power, and only receive a fraction of the revenue you generate, you also give up much of your time for free. This tends to evoke anxiety, so you purchase commodities which promise to save time that will probably be spent consuming media, which advertises additional commodities, which may or may not promise more time. Both fast food and health food make this promise. The working day, time off, time unemployed, all time spent channeled into the repetition of patterns. These predictable patterns we are forced into produce a certain way of experiencing time, what Guy Debord called pseudo-cyclical time. This form of time, this chronotype, shares many similarities with the sort of time experienced in societies where production is tied chiefly to the passing of the seasons, what Debord simply referred to as cyclical time. Whereas cyclical time governed the production of necessities, pseudo-cyclical time governs the current mode of production. so long ago detached from the seasonal changes of the land, at least superficially. Number 2. Moral superiority. When scandal is denounced in the marketing of a commodity, a clear moral line is drawn. Suddenly, you are given a choice which will exorcise the evil from the system. Assuming you make the correct choice. But, of course you will. You're a good person. But, to clarify, it's not simply that you make the correct decision, and that you are being sold the sensation of moral superiority when you purchase, for example, free trade coffee. You are additionally, through your sacrifice of paying a little extra, usually, cleansing the sins of capitalism. You are affirming its capacity for good, and thus obscuring the avarice nature of capitalist entities. And yet, the problems of righteous indignation are rooted even deeper. As Beauregard wrote in Simulacra and Simulation, capital, immoral and without scruples, can only function behind a moral superstructure, and whoever revives this public morality through indignation, denunciation, etc., works spontaneously for the order of capital. Catharsis may produce a stronger paralysis than fear. I once spent a few hours writing in the comments section of Apple product ads, "Rest in piss, Steve Jobs." And after that bout of flexing my moral superiority, I felt entitled to the last Nissan super meal. Didn't even ask Thistle. Didn't even cook it. Number 1. Furbies. Furbies are made of dog hair and will teach your child to smoke cigars. Dream well, and good night. Okay, wait. Before you fall asleep thinking of me, think also of the General Line, the YouTuber. He makes intergaging info-theatrics. Very wholesome, very domestic. Like sitting on a couch with a homie who knows things.